All right, I've got about possibly, let me check my time here before I clock in. I've got about 11 minutes before I have to clock in, but I want to ask a question I'm sure a lot of people ask as I open up a can of Kickstart to kind of help me out. It's better. Do you know, I understand it's only 3 weeks into the NFL season, but this is a question that's been bugging me for a while. Now, I know I might get some flack for it, and some people may question whether or not I'm, just kidding or just mad and biased, at times because of what's going on with one of my, if not two of my teams. But to me, it's not just, any of that. It's more along the lines of, I just don't understand what's going on. I mean, like anybody listening here, who's an NFL fan, I have my favorite teams. I'm a 49er fan, first and foremost. Sometimes I support the Raiders if I need to. I'm also a Chiefs fan because I lived in Kansas for a while. I also kind of like St. Louis because I lived out there. Well, not in St. Louis, but in Kansas, Midwest area. So I support them. I really do. But, also, like anybody, I support when they're good enough and they've shown that they can be good enough. They got the potential. I support Dallas because, America's team. And I've always had a kind of a fondness, for the Buffalo Bills. But the thing is, when I look at how these teams are that have the potential to be great team, have great seasons, be playoff eligible, if not, somehow make it to the Super Bowl down the line or at the end of the year. I look at them, I look at some of the games they're in, and then I hear what some of the analysts, the sportscasters, the commentators and all that have to say, and I have to agree with some of the things they say because even some of them straight, kind of shoot straight, if you will. And they wonder why certain games were called the way they were, why officials called flags on plays that didn't need to be called, or called flags on fouls and stuff like that weren't necessary. I mean, what is going on? That is one of two questions that I think fans are wondering. One, are referees, NFL referees, paid under the table? Are they paid under the table? And are some of these referees maybe biased? Are some of these referees fans deep down, if not, well, not just deep down, but are some of these NFL referees passionate, very passionate fans of the teams that are involved in these games? Like, is a referee a fan of New England and they called a flag on Oakland towards the end of the game? Is that the reason, or are they getting paid under the table? When Seattle faced Denver, were there any situations where you had a referee call foul on Denver and for no reason? Is it because that referee's a Seattle fan? It makes you wonder that. It makes you question, yay or nay. And then also the other question, besides that one and maybe the one I just mentioned, are they biased because they're fans, is things predetermined. Now, I'm not trying to say anything I'm not trying to say anything that you might think, has me comparing this to the WWE or pro wrestling in itself. No. But you have to look at it this way. There's got to be reasons why certain teams get to the points that they do. I mean, you take a look at throughout the years. And you look at the teams that you believe, that you kind of think, well, that team shouldn't have gotten, where they are now, but yet all of a sudden, here they are in the position to win the Super Bowl, and they do. You know what I'm saying? Like years ago, you had the New York Giants, which nobody thought were going to make the playoffs, but yet they somehow did, and all of a sudden New York's unstoppable in the playoffs. They make it to the Super Bowl, and they win the Super Bowl. And you take a look at Seattle. Seattle, a good team, I'm not going to deny that, seemed at times virtually unstoppable, depending on where they were, mostly at home. And when they got to the Super Bowl, it's like, oh my gosh. It's like, oh my gosh. Here we go. They just ran over Denver in that game. Unlike they did today in the rematch, regular season rematch, but still it's like they ran over them like they were nothing. And it makes you wonder. It makes you contemplate and think, is this all predetermined in the long run? Is an NFL season already set in stone as to who's going to be the teams that are going to dominate the NFL, get to the playoffs, and then win the playoffs? Win those playoff games, and then eventually face off in the Super Bowl and be the team that wins that Super Bowl. Is it already set in stone? It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder that. Because you would wonder, you would think, that let's say you're a Houston Texan fan and your team at times has proven to be a good team throughout a few seasons. You would think, well, why isn't Houston doing so good right now? Oh, why did they fail in the playoffs? What's going on? It makes you wonder, right? Makes your mind wonder about that. And it makes my mind wonder about that because I just cannot, bring myself to believe that any NFL team, whether it's San Francisco, Oakland, Dallas, New England, Denver, Seattle, Pittsburgh, Arizona, whatever the team, San Diego, it makes me not, it makes me not want to think that the teams are suffering this bad because they are that bad, or they just are not focusing. It makes me wonder if there's a reason behind it. It makes me wonder whether or not things are already set in stone and predetermined. I mean, come on, folks, think about it. Wouldn't you be feeling that way? Don't you feel that way sometimes? Thinking to yourself, well, why is my team acting like this? It's the same thing with Major League Baseball, too. You have all these teams you think in the beginning and in the middle of the season are looking good and they're playoff bound. And all of a sudden they start going wonky. And then all of a sudden other teams start coming up like all of a sudden they're just unstoppable forces. And it makes you wonder what is going on, It makes you wonder what is going on. Why are these teams all of a sudden that are supposed to be the best suddenly not being the best? Now some of you might say it's because of injuries and all that, and that pertains to both leagues and sports, and I get that. But I think it's more. I think there's a reason behind all this, and I believe it's the fact, whether anybody wants to agree with me or not, that even the NFL, the MLB, and any other sport in some form or fashion that that pertains somewhat to not just being sports but entertainment is already predetermined, if not for the whole season, and a team has already been chosen, or teams have been chosen. That's the way I look at it. So maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. I don't think I'm wrong, but it's just my opinion. You let me know what you guys think. I'm going to clock into work now and see how crazy we're going to get. Hopefully not as crazy as last night.